Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. With me is Maxwell Rowshandel, who is a federal worker. And we're just going to talk to Maxwell about what's been happening to him. Just a relaxed conversation, just one man's story of what it's like to be in the federal government right now. So, Maxwell, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you for a couple of reasons. Just being able to be so transparent and tell your story. So many workers haven't felt that they could come forward. And so I really do appreciate you being willing to come forward, using your name and who you are. I know that comes with, some trepidation. So I want to thank you for that, and just helping people understand what it's like as an employee. I guess I could still say an employee, right? Or why don't you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you are in terms of your employment with the federal government?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Um, right now, I am somewhat currently an employee at the CDC. I'm a remote employee in Washington, D.C., and um, I work for the Division of Viral Hepatitis in their policy team. The long and the short of it is, I'm someone who helps connect like the White House, Congress, other folks with the subject matter experts in my division. And right now, I mentioned my employment status is a little fuzzy. I got a notice of termination on February 14th that I would be terminated on March 14th. So fired based on performance reasons. And due to court orders, the that has been kind of put off indefinitely. So tomorrow those court orders could go away and I'm like actually fired. I might be reinstated at some point, but I'm not too I don't I'm not I don't really think that's likely to happen. So I'm in kind of a gray area right now.
Right. And that court order you're referring to, you are a probationary employee, is that correct?
Right. I was part of the Presidential Management Fellows Program, which is about getting a new generation of leaders in the federal government. CDC hires a ton of them because they really value the program. And so I was probationary for 2 years. I was about a year and a half through. And yeah, I was part of these kind of mass layoffs of probationary employees.
What do you do? What is your job or is your job or
Yeah.
I know you're in limbo, but tell us a little bit about your background and what you were doing.
Yeah. So my background was I was or my current position is I'm on the policy team for Division of Viral Hepatitis. A lot of people don't know about the disease, and that's the problem. It's actually a group of diseases. They all affect the liver, and the issue is the two main ones, B and C, are very deadly. B, there is no cure. There is a vaccine, but once you have it, you have the chronic infection for life, and you need to constantly be getting treatment or else your liver will fail. For hepatitis C, you can get infected and not know for decades that you have this terrible disease until you have liver cancer, your liver is failing, and you potentially might need a transplant, or you could really get hurt or potentially die. So the reason why I'm in this position and the reason why I wanted to work at the CEC at with the foremost experts in the world is I wrote my thesis on hepatitis C in prisons, and we talked about this before, in that because this disease is so deadly, because you really don't have symptoms until you are really actively dying, um, what the government can do and what should be done is get this amazing cure for hepatitis C to people as soon as possible. Get them tested, get them treated, because it saves lives and saves money. The issue is that drug for if you're not on insurance, which many folks in prison are not, or are on Medicare, costs $65,000 per person.
Mhm.
So hugely expensive drug that is above 95% cure rate, no side effects. Like it's a daily pill you take for a few weeks, and then you are cured of a disease that will eventually kill you. This is called the lowest hanging fruit in public health. It is the biggest win-win-win that you can really get because uh, no matter how expensive that drug is, it is still cheaper than a liver transplant.
Mhm.
So if you let these folks, slowly die of the disease, the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution says if they start having liver failure, the jail and prison has to give them a transplant, and that is $100,000 per person.
Wow.
So even if you don't care about these folks, it actually is cost saving to treat them.
And it's so interesting because the whole thing about what's been happening to the workforce is efficiency and saving money. And here we have a program and a young gentleman who is committed to not just saving lives and saving money over the long haul. Now is now in limbo. On the open market, you could have gone to work for a pharmaceutical company, couldn't you? Couldn't you make a whole bunch of money than what you were making working for the federal government?
Yeah, I graduated my undergrad with a nanomedicine engineering degree, which is like tailor-made to get a job in pharma. Um, and I was originally planning to go to medical school and kind of like go that route into biomedical research, but um, I started pursuing a master's of public health, and I really saw, hey, I can do a lot of good to people who really need it, and that's how I want to spend my life.
So here we are now, in this sort of limbo in your job. Tell me what that's like and how you've been feeling with what's been happening with the DOGE cuts to the federal workforce.
Yeah, it's been incredibly like painful to feel like um I was in a position where, I was trying to help people at least, and now I'm forced to kind of sit on the sidelines as I see more of these really vital programs, not just my work, but in a lot of other places, continue to get cut and really most dangerously that these folks who some of them have been working in these jobs for decades, doing incredible work, who have this great vast knowledge of really how to do good work, um, either are terminated, they're put on leave, or you're kind of pressured out of the work to begin with. Like my policy team is supposed to be 6 people. Me and another probationary employee are kind of in this limbo. Two of the folks, those positions can't get filled because of the hiring freeze. And now there's only one person left, which should be a 6-person team. So that one person, if they leave, that's it. Because we like literally cannot replace them. Like we're not allowed to. So, and I'll put it this way. Um, in the CDC, it's not just a big part of the work is these are the smartest experts in the world. Like the research they do is top of, the best in the world. It's that access to research, the making recommendations, giving information to the American people and your doctors and hospitals of what to do. But it's also the CDC kind of coordinates funding to state and local health departments to do the work.
Right.
So in hepatitis C and a lot of these other things, if you don't go out and look for people, they're not going to know they have the disease until their livers are failing. So if you
Yeah.
don't have people on the ground doing this work and sending money to state and localities, that's it. Like no one else is funding this work. No one else can really fund this work. So as soon as you have that one person who has been tirelessly doing this job for probably decades, as soon as you get rid of them, we cannot easily replace that person, even if there wasn't a hiring freeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not just losing funding, it's the people who could do the work are getting forced out or like me are put in this limbo.
So give people a sense of what it's like to be in this employment limbo. And I also want to read something from the letter that you got on February
Mhm.
14th, which I thought was sort of interesting because your name wasn't even on it, right? I mean, it's like, how do you even know? How do they even know it's you? But you got an email, and this letter was attached to it, I imagine. And there was one part in there in particular. It said, unfortunately, the agency finds that you are not fit for continued employment because of your ability, knowledge, and skills do not fit the agency's current needs, and your performance has not been adequate to justify further employment in the agency. Now, y'all, this man is a fellowship, a fellow. I mean, what was it like to read that graph, which is clearly I don't know. I don't even want to say clearly, but it's crazy, right?
Yeah, it at first I was just confused because I just got we had just me and almost everyone else who I knew in this fellowship just got a performance evaluation. Like we really were just graded on our performance and not one of us, did poorly. Right? If you do poor like this is just like any other job. If you do poorly at your job, you like get put on a work plan and like there's a lot of discussion leading up to if you were
Mhm.
fired and having thousands of people all at the same time be fired for performance reasons does not pass the sniff test.
Right.
So it was really like I was like, did they not see what happened? You know, I did really, really well, right? I don't know a single person who didn't. Um, so it was just so bizarre to be told you're not good enough for this job, but also I'm about to get a performance reward. I'm about to get a performance bonus and I got promoted very recently, which same has happened with almost all of my colleagues. Like every single colleague I know was getting rewarded for our performance and then fired because of it as well. So it was just like such a bizarre thing and to your point, everyone got the exact same letter. Like there's no difference other than it got sent to our individual emails. So it was identical.
And so clearly it means that, so this is a lie, right? You're being fired based on a lie.
Yeah,
What's this?
it, I don't think it was performance reasons. I'll put it that way. Like I don't know how you could see the performance of me and other folks in my fellowship or any other probationary employees and say, "Oh, you got a promotion, you got a performance award, but that's not good enough either. We're gonna fire you anyways." Like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you know at this point? Have you had any communications with HR, with former supervisors? Where does this all stand for you?
So part of the confusion is that those two positions that we can't fill are my supervisor and the person above them. So my I it's been hard to get information. But essentially I'm on this kind of like administrative leave indefinitely because of the court order. Um, there have been very recently, I think yesterday, these reduction in force, these RIF plans. Um, if that was sent to my inbox, I don't have access to that. So I don't know if I've been fired that way or not. I'm trying to get that information now, but I haven't gotten anything to my personal email or anything to tell me where I'm at. And I really just have to watch these court proceedings to see does this restraining order that keeps me on leave continue? Will it be appealed? This could go on for months. It could end tomorrow. So it's really absolutely no certainty. I'll
So
put it
you
that
don't
way.
have access to your email, so you don't even know, you don't know anything. I mean, you can't, nobody's communicating with you.
Right. And I think in those RIF plans, I don't know the exact specifics, but I think some of the folks who got fired is the CDC HR team. So it's the folks who would I know, like the folks who would give me the answer also might get canned. And the worst part is, there's a lot of worst parts, but one of the worst things for me and a bunch of other folks, folks who have been fully terminated or have left or what have you, in order to get unemployment benefits, there's this form that you'll receive that says, "Hey, you have actually been terminated. You're no longer employed," so that people can't, still be on the job and collect unemployment. If CDC's HR team is supposed to process that, and the whole office gets fired, you know, that means not only have we been fired, but now we can't even get unemployment.
Mhm.
Um, so, I truly don't know what's going to happen to folks. Um, if they don't end up getting that form, because then you have been fired, but you can't prove that you've been fired
Right.
to unemployment agencies all around the country.
Wow. And so to be clear, you're still getting a paycheck, right?
Hmm.
But you just don't know when it'll stop.
When it'll stop, I don't know if, my health care or health insurance might be affected. Like, there really is very little guidance as to what's happening. and how long. And again, that could end tomorrow, that could end, whenever.
So what's that like for you financially speaking? How are you feeling about your, ability to cover your expenses?
Um, I'm thankfully like very lucky that I've been able to save and so on, but my real concern is again, this admin leave scenario could end tomorrow. And if it ends, I'm like, okay, there's like a countdown before I can't pay my rent anymore. And if I don't have a crystal ball, but with all the talks of recession and the cost of living continuing to go up, that timeline kind of gets crunched and crunched and crunched more. And in a job market where I'm now competing with people who are, decades more experienced than I am, competing for the exact same jobs, that is, I might not land a job for 6 months. I might not land a job for a year,
Oh,
um, because I am competing with so many other people, and people who are, you know, again, like decades more experienced than me, like director level people, for sometimes entry level jobs.
mm,
So it's really like a very um, hyper competitive job market that I'm now kind of tossed into.
yeah.
Um, and I know folks, some of my colleagues who, because CDC is based in Atlanta, had just moved to Atlanta, just bought a house, just started a family,
Mm,
are expecting to grow their family, and this is, um, even if it, I hope that we can at least stay on admin leave for a bit. Even then, like they need more certainty than that, right? They need to know that they can keep paying their rent and their mortgage and providing for their families and so on. So it's just it's just like a really uncertain time and hard to like almost impossible to be happy about any good things that happen.
yeah. So now that you are still on this administrative leave, are you looking for jobs? What's your day like, in terms of finding some stability for yourself?
Yeah, so I've actually even today I've gotten some really good advice from mentors and my bosses from previous jobs to um really just make sure you're like taking care of yourself.
Mm,
So right now I'm applying to jobs every day. Um, I'm taking a lot of folks' advice of it's better to, you know, really, really try hard to apply for one job, like change my resume every time, change my cover letter every time, like spend hours on a single job application because that's, how you increase your chances. So it's really every day trying to, keep my cool and
yeah,
take care of myself and then be as consistent and keep a schedule as much as possible.
yeah. That must be so hard, really, with all
Yeah.
the
Job
uncertainty.
applying is not easy.
Yeah,
And it's really like I'm sure a lot of folks know like you never really enjoy it and you never really get good at it and you just have to keep doing it.
yeah.
So I know I'm in the same boat as a lot of other folks with that.
I'm heartbroken that we might lose Maxwell and more Maxwells. I've had such a pleasure talking to you and hearing the passion, for this work in your voice. And it really saddens me, that we'll lose folks like you, in this whatever this is. And I just, again, I really thank you for sharing your story and willing to come forward and talk about what it's like. There's so many more out there like you. But just as we wrap this up, I wondered, is there anything that you want to ask me financially about things that you might do as you wait this out?
I just want to again thank you for the opportunity to speak here and at least I know, no matter how long it takes, like I'll come back eventually, as much as I can. Um, but yeah, I guess I'd love any general, let's start with the basics, like any kind of budgeting tips or way to, protect myself if I really can't find a job for quite a while. Anything like that would be really helpful.
Yeah, well, this is such unprecedented times. The normal advice I give people almost some, I mean, it's so heartbreaking for me, but I think you're doing a lot of the things that you should do. I mean, right now, while you're still getting a paycheck, just save as much as you can, cut everything. I
Hmm.
mean, I know it's hard when the money is still coming in to say, well, I can still go out, I can still do this thing, but like, as you point out, we especially because you're in such a specialized area,
Hmm.
not sure how long it would take you to get another job. So I would just be no vacations, no, I'd be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I'm just like cut everything. And I know it sounds terrible because you're going through this horrible thing and like, can I just go out for one night or things like that? But I mean, just pull it all in and save as much, and then, spread it out. In fact, one of the tips I've been giving people is that if you've been putting money in the TSP, you might
Hmm.
want to pull that back, put it enough to get the match, and then put the rest of it in savings, to tide you over if it takes you a long time to get a job. Now, normally I wouldn't say that. I want you to put as much in, especially at 29, right?
Hmm.
But for right now, you might want to, and I don't know what percentage you were putting in, but I would back that out and use some of that to carry you over while you're looking for a job. That would be one thing. And then,
Yeah.
reach out for help. It sounds like you're such a smart young man and you're already kind of got an idea of where your life is going. But if you need somebody to talk to, mental health professionals,
Hmm.
just a vent, right? To have somebody help you figure out how to get through this emotionally. And then finally, if it comes to you can't pay your rent, move in with someone, do some drastic things, that you
Hmm.
might have to move or move back with parents or move back to where they are, to reserve some of your money. I mean, when there's a crisis and you're in a health professional, I usually tell people sort of look at your budget like a triage, like in an emergency room. In the emergency room, they treat the people first. So your budget is the same thing. You pay the things you absolutely have to pay, and then other stuff has to go by the wayside. So I would be talking to my creditors if you've got debt, hey, listen, I'm a federal worker. And that's all you probably have to say. I mean, they know, right? And if you can, if hopefully you don't have any debt, but if you do, just pay the minimum. Lots of
Hmm.
times I would tell young people if they have debt, be very aggressive in trying to pay it off. But right now, I would pull back, just pay the minimum. And if you can't even do that, just call the lenders and say, listen, I'm in this situation. Can you let me have a pause while I pay for things that are a necessity? So that's sort of, triage your expenses and just act, as if you might lose that paycheck the next pay period.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think I might immediately, look at my TSP to see how much I was adding into it because I think that's something I could do right now. So,
Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I hope that we're going to stay in contact. I want to know how things happen for you. And if something changes, maybe we'll have you come back and talk about what that's like. Hopefully, you'll be able to keep your job because clearly, with your expertise and the need, we need folks like you. So I really do
Thank
wish you
you.
the best.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, I'd be happy to come back and talk about hopefully good news.
I hope so.